Hey guys and welcome to Top Channel 1-on-1. So in Blender 2.41, they added a new feature that lets you add your own custom modifiers. So Blender has a lot of modifiers, but sometimes it feels like there's still more that can be added. So thank God they now giving you an option to create your own. And this is only in 4.1. So if you don't have that version, just go to blender.org and download it for yourself so that you can try out this option. So under the new geometry nodes, there is an option to work on modifiers. This is basically just working within the default geometry nodes, or the option to work in the tools option, which basically gives you an option to create your own modifiers. I'm calling them modifiers, but they're more like tools. These tools here that you see, especially when you are working in edit mode. So you're basically adding onto this list your own custom modifier, your own custom tools. You won't have separate icons for them, but I hope that's a feature that will come up in the future. But now you have the option to create your own tools or modifiers that you can access up here. These will only work in edit mode of the object you are in. So if you go out of edit mode, you can see that option goes away. They're not like the built-in modifiers that will work even outside edit mode. They only have to work in edit mode. So yeah, I'm going to show you how to make your own by creating about 5 custom modifiers, starting out with creating a very simple and basic selection tool that allows you to select any vertices close to the 3D cursor. And then from there, we can level up and create another tool that lets you turn any face you select into a door or a window. And that is going to be very, very useful if you are an architect. Just a single click and you get a window. These are very, very simple setups, only about 5 to 6 nodes, and yeah, very simple to implement. So we're going to learn that and then level up even further to other modifiers. For example, we'll look at how you can create add damage to cursor option. So for example, in this tool or modifier, you can have your 3D cursor anywhere, for example there, and on that mesh I can add damage. You can see the damage, you can change the damage, you can give it more detail. Let's scale it up, and maybe reduce the strength of the noise there, and add more subdivisions. You can see how that looks. I think this is a very, very powerful tool, and if you're not satisfied with the position, you can even move it around and try it in different areas. So that is one modifier we are going to do. You can add more damage. So for example, I can even add another more extra damage here, again by just accessing that tool. And maybe this time I can move it a bit down or move it in just a bit, and just add some more extra resolution. So yeah, and you can see the materials are set up for you. So that is the second tool. The first one is just a simple selection tool to just introduce you through the process of creating these tools or modifiers. And the third one is going to be a rebar tool that lets you add this internal structure so that you can even layer more detail to your damage. The project files are going to be on my Gumroad page, Patreon, and YouTube membership page. Okay, so we're going to start with something simple like a mesh selector or a vertex selector, depending on the position of the 3D cursor. So let's add a mesh, a plane, and just give it a few subdivisions. I'm going to subdivide this quite a lot. And you will see that if you're in 4.1, there is a new icon here, and when you click on it, you can see you will get all your modifiers you have created. They won't be in the modifier stack as the built-in modifiers, but you can find them up here. The modifiers you create only work in edit mode of a mesh or a curve, depending on what you're working on. So for example here, first thing, we're going to go to the geometry nodes. Now you can see there is an option to select modifiers, to work on modifiers. That is the modifier you get and geometry nodes here. So if you create one, you'll see we'll access it here. But what we're going to be creating are tools. I know I call them modifiers because to me that's what they seem to be. So we can go to the tools section and now start working on our tools. So you can create one here, and whatever name you give it here is what you will have access to above here. So I can, for example, call this nearest to cursor selector, like that, and I should see it up here as well. So when I select that tool, it will activate, or that tool will run. So right now we don't have anything here. So let's first get the position of this 3D cursor, and if you're in the tools node, there is a new node called, you can hit F3 and search for cursor, Now it will give you this node that gives you the rotation and location of the cursor. We're only interested in the location. So I'm going to go here and use set selection. This will help us create the selection. So I can use this location of the cursor to select anything close to this. So I can use vector math, and use the distance, check how close all these individual points are to the 3D cursor. So I can use the position node, the individual positions of each vertex in our mesh, and that should calculate the distance of how close these are to the 3D cursor. So I'm going to convert this into a selection by using the greater than operator. Connect that, and that should give me the selection I want. So I can come in here and just expose this parameter. And now if I go to here to this tool and use the nearest selection, you can see it's giving us the selection, but it's inverted. And I can come in here and just expand the selection or deselect the nearest vertices to the cursor. So to get the inverse and have the option to invert our selection, what we can do is use the Boolean math operator. The operation should be not to get the inverse of what we want. So I can come in here, Shift S, and just select the tool nearest to cursor, and you can see we get the inverse. I can grow the selection, but I want another option here to invert the selection. So to do that, I'm going to have a switch node here, and I want to switch between the Boolean selection we have. So I can have this here, and when this is true, we can go with this operation. Remember, if we skip over this operation, and come directly to this, we get the inverse of what we have. So we get the farthest selected instead of the closest. So when we use this switch and expose this parameter, so I can easily invert. So if I move my cursor here, shift right click, nearest to cursor, I can use the switch to get the inverse of that, and now we have that. Now you can see it's quite a lot of work to go up here and find the tool you want. What we can do instead is right click on this and add it to the quick favorite. So I can click on that and just use Q to access my nearest to cursor, and now you can see now I can have my selection. This was a very simple tool or modifier to get us introduced to these tools. So let's create a more complicated tool. Okay, our next modifier is going to be a modifier that lets us add windows to any face we selected, turn any face we select into a window or a door. So imagine you have a cube like this, and you're trying to make a house. You have your roof. You want to make several houses, and you want to add a windows, doors, and everything. So let's create a modifier that helps us with that. So we can create a tool that turns face to window, stroke doors. Actually, we could have separate ones for the door and a window. So yeah, this is what we have. And to make this run quick, I'm going to just right click, add shortcuts so that I can access a face to window here. Now we can select that, and you can see it doesn't do anything. The first thing we can do is extrude this in. So I can get the current selection using the selection tool. So this reads the current selection, and from that I can extrude mesh. Now this is our mesh, and only is extruding the selection we have, the current selection. Now if I execute that, you can see that pushes this in. You can use this offset to control the extrusion. Let me undo this. So extrude, and now we have the ability to push this in. Now the other thing we need is to select this inside and then insert it like that, and then I guess we could insert it one more time and subdivide it like this, and then insert these like that, and something like that. I think that's good enough of a window. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to our face, original face, and we're able to offset this, extrude this, and the next thing we want to do, we want to extrude once and then insert, but there is no insert tool or node. So what we can do is extrude again and only extrude this face, the already extruded face. So we will use that as the selection. We don't want to offset it. We just want to scale it. So let's use a scale element. So F3 scale elements. Now you only scale this top face, and I want to scale it by say something like 0.9. So now if we go back to this, or if we select any face, Q, face to window, we still should be able to push this in. I guess I can go to the offset and I just set the default to be a negative value, negative 0.9, so that is always extruded in. Okay, so let's try this here. Let's see, it should be something like negative 0.0, negative 0.0. Okay, that's what we have. It can be confusing what the last operation is doing or what the last node is doing, because the selection is always the original selection you have. So we can have this operator end with the selection that this operator is working on. So I can do that using a set selection. So Shift A or F3, set selection, have that there, and the selection should be this top so that we can know what we are working on. So again, I will undo this and Q. You can see now that's the face we are working on. So we want to extrude that in. So I will use an extrude face again, and I use this top selection, and again I want it to be this face. The offset should be again negative 0.007. So if we reset this, and you can see we get that. Now at this stage, we can subdivide the mesh using a subdivide like that. But the problem with the subdivide, if we use a subdivide node, it has no selection. So if we use it here, it's going to subdivide the entire mesh. So let me undo this once again. Q, you will see it subdivides the entire mesh, and we don't want that. So what we can do is separate this selection here using a separate node, and this selection is going to be the top selection, and then we can subdivide that, and we can still have that as our selection. So you can Q face, and you can see it subdivides the mesh, but then we don't have the original mesh anymore. It has removed the original mesh because the original mesh has been separated and is here. So we can join it back using a join geometry. So this should be joined back. Okay, so Q, you can see what we have. Now, one thing, I don't know if this is a bug, but on subdividing the mesh tends to be pushed back for some reason. I don't know why that is the case. I don't think it should happen, but for now we can just work with that. We can figure out a solution later. So it's subdivided, and we can basically repeat the same steps here. So this is our mesh here. We subdivide it. We want to extrude insert, so we extrude using the same selection, no offset. Make sure we don't have individual origins, and actually should it be on for any of these, and then we can scale that selection. Let me show you what's happening here. So we want the set selection to come back here and do selection so that we know what we're working on. So you can see we have subdivided and extruded. We need now to scale, and only scale this by 0.9. So let's try run this again. You can see it has extruded, but I think for this we want to have individual faces on. So let's try again. You can see what is happening there, and we still have the original selection. So I think it doesn't matter. We can unselect that. We again want to push these by extruding. So push these selection in a bit. So now we have, I think I've pushed them a bit too much. So 0.1, undo this. You can see, that's good enough. Now we have that issue where this window, we have this gap here that is created by the subdivision. Like I said, I think this is a bug and might be fixed in a later version, but let's see how we can fix that. This face here, we can, Blender crashed, and I wasn't saving. For some reason, Blender crashed, and I lost that progress. And we have a lot of tools to work on, so I don't want to go back to that. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so the next one is just going to be a quick tool that lets you add damage to any area you select on a mesh. Imagine this is a concrete block. So we want to be able to add damage wherever the 3D cursor is. So let me scale this. So this is our block. Let me add two materials. The one for the wall and another one for the inside, like that. So this one is going to be somewhere, let's try a bluish color like that, and another one should be an orange color like that, the inside. So let's go to geometry nodes and go to our tools. Now this one is going to be add damage to cursor. You're going to use the cursor position to add damage where the cursor is. So go to edit mode, make sure you apply the scale. So let's say we have our cursor there. We can come in here and use the cursor, the 3D cursor. I want its location, and at its location we want to instance some points. So let me get a point. Let's get some points. We only want 1 point, and it has to have that location, the same location as our cursor. If we join geometry with our points, you will notice that if we execute this, so this is add damage to cursor. Let me add that. Add to quick favorites, add damage to cursor. You can see nothing really happens. And the reason for that is that we are dealing with meshes. So our output our final output of the geometry or tool should also be a mesh. And right now we are working with points, so we have to convert them into some mesh. So let's first instance on points, and let's use a cube. Let's use a cube. Now we can randomize the rotation with a random rotation, negative 1.57, 1.57. You can randomize the rotation by changing with the seed. So I'll expose that. Now let's see how this is working. Again, because the output here is an instance, it's not going to work. So if I go back here, you can see we don't see any output. We need to realize these instances using the realize instances, and now it should work. So yeah, you can see what we have. And if I change the seed, we get a different rotation. So we're going to use this as a Boolean cut. So we don't need this join geometry. We can use a Boolean mesh. This is the mesh one, and this is the difference mesh. So you can get rid of this and try again, and you can see what we have. This is really raw damage. It's not as detailed as we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is we can use a subdivision surface and expose the level. Now if I do this, our damage, you can see our mesh, and we can add more detail like that. Undo. Now if we go back to this, we should see that that's the damage we have, and we can add more subdivision to it, just like that. Make sure I'm saving. So that's what we have, and I can reduce the subdivisions, and I can come in here, do the same thing, and you can see add damage. But we need more detail using some noise. So I'm going to use add some displacement to the mesh. So add a set position, and let's use noise, some noise into the offset. Let's use some vector math, subtract 0.5. And then we can scale the noise, and I'll expose this here for the noise, and this will be our noise strength, and we don't want to just add the noise directly. We want to use the normal of the mesh. So I can use normal and scale it with our noise here. So actually I just need this noise to scale the noise, and let me add a math node to subtract 1.5 and use a multiply operator for the strength of the noise. Let's see, we can also add an option to change the scale of our damage. So I can use another node, use a scale elements node here, and just use that. So let's test this out. Shift Q, add damage. Okay, it doesn't seem to work. Let's see. Add damage. You can see what we have. We can add subdivisions. The noise is too powerful, so we can change the noise strength and the scale of our noise, level of subdivisions, and even change the seed for some simple damage. And I think we should have an option to remove the damage altogether in case we want to revert to our original mesh. instead of using undo. So I can use a switch node. You can use a switch node to switch between the geometry, to switch between switch from the damaged mesh to the original mesh. So I can use this and use this as remove damage, so that we don't only rely on the undo, which can sometimes not work. So shift Q, add damage, and we can remove the damage, can add it back if you want. We don't want it. Scale this and let's do, yeah, you can see that's some good damage. You can remove it or add it in a different spot. You can see you can add more controls like transform controls. Let me first remove this. I can add before here we can add a transform node, add the translate. So now I can do add noise and change the position of this noise in case I want. Add more subdivisions. There's quite a lot. The noise strength is too much, so I can reduce that. You can see you're not only restricted to one volume. You can add another more damage. Just like that. Reduce the strength. Another thing you could do is expose the scale of the noise. So I can come in here, Q, add damage, and just. One thing to note is that this is not a fully procedural workflow. So after you add the damage, you can't come back and edit it. So yeah, but it's a quick way to create some nice walls. And the next tool we're going to do is show you how to add rebar and more interior detail to the damage. Let's add some texture folders and look for some concrete blocks, concrete textures. Let me use this and create a new material, call this wall outs. Bring in this, import this, and just use this as the base color. Like that. Let me use box projection and just object mapping. Yeah, so imagine this is our concrete block. Can use this as the roughness. And we need an interior, so I'll do wall inside. And let me use a different texture, like something, I think something like this. Just import. And just do this is the base. Again, we can use object mapping for this as well. And, this is the roughness. Go to edit mode and use the damage at cursor. Let me move this up a bit. Subdivide this. Maybe the noise strength should be down a bit. Maybe scale this. Yeah, scale the damage a bit like that. Now we haven't set up the inside material, so let's do that. And we first remove that damage so that we can apply it properly. So let's go to geometry nodes, and you can see we have two meshes here. So I can add a set material, and just use the wall inside, and we should be good to go. So let's see. Q, add damage. Yeah, you can see the inside now has its own material. Let's add more subdivisions. Let's scale down the noise strength. Reposition this. Scale it up, maybe randomize the damage. You can see within just a few seconds you have a well damaged wall. Now, so that's modifier, I think 3. Now let's add some interior structure to this, like rebar and everything. So yeah, we can create another modifier. This would be modifier 4. So go back to geometry nodes and create a new one and use, let's call it rebar at selected. That's going to be our new tool. Let me come back, go to edit mode, and just add that to my quick favorite so that I can access it easily. You can see right now it doesn't do anything. And if we make a selection, let's go back here to. So we want to add interior structure to this. Say this area that we have selected, we can add rebar to this. To do that, we can after we have this, we can have this selection, turn it into points, and then extrude those points, turn them into vertices, and then extrude them into rebar. So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is get the selection using the selection. We want to distribute points on faces and only on the selected faces. Now we want to convert them into vertices, so we can use our points to vertices. And to show you what is happening, let me add back our switch node. This is a good way to switch between the original geometry and what we are doing. So I can go back here, rebar. Okay, we are not seeing anything. Let me use the switch operator here. Points to vertices. So let's see. Switch. Doesn't see, why are we not getting anything? Maybe we don't have enough points. Let's see. I guess we might have to be in vertex mode. Yeah, you have to be in vertex mode since we are the output we are having here are vertices. So yeah, you can see our vertices. Let's undo this. Make sure you're saving. And I want the density to be exposed as well. So we can go back to this, change the density. Let's say something like 10, switch back to the original. Now we want to extrude these along their normals. So we can do the extrude. You can extrude. We need to do this before the switch. So we need to extrude, only extrude our vertices. Bring that in here. And we need to change this to vertices. So let's try this again. Can see what we have extruded. Go back. We want to push these along their normal, so we'll grab a normal. We'll use the normal as the offset, and let's try this again. Okay, so the normal, this should be the normal here. The normal from this. Let's try that again. Yeah, you can see we have that. Undo that. We need to be able to randomize this, the length of the rebar. So I'm going to do our random, use a random value, yeah, and just use this to control how long the rebar is. You can see we don't really have a lot of vertices, so let's first, actually I think we can convert these into curves, and I don't like we have too many. And the density, I'm going to come back to the density here and just make it something like 10 as the default. So yeah, we want to convert this into a curve. So we can change this to mesh to curve, just like that. And we want to subdivide this curve with a subdivide curve. And subdivide, add in a few cuts. And we also don't want this to just be. And after this is turned into a curve, it won't work because remember the output has to match the original object, which is a mesh. So I need to, why did this not work? So curve to mesh. So this is a mesh. We need to change since this is a mesh, we need to first convert the mesh to curve and then subdivide the curve. I think that's why it wasn't working. So rebar, yeah, you can see the curves are subdivided and we're good to go. So from there, we can increase the number of cuts or even expose that parameter there. And we don't want the rebar to just be straight. We can also just add a circle curve here for the profile, and we want the radius to be fairly something like 6, and the radius should be point something like 0.1, and have that exposed as well. So if I come back to this rebar, yeah, need to come back here, add it to quick favorite, and then rebar at selected. You can see our rebar. We want to join it back to the original mesh. So I will use a join geometry here and just join it to the original mesh like that. So rebar at, you can see what we get. Let me remove it for now. Now this rebar just looks, Blender is really unstable right now in this version, but yeah, won't stop us. Our rebar is just straight, going directly like that. Let's switch back to the original and again bring back the join geometry, and just join it to the original mesh, so we can see everything. I need to change the default radius to something like 0.1, and the maximum subdivisions, the default subdivisions, to something like 5. Yeah, but our rebar doesn't look damaged. It's just protruding out. So what we can do is add some detail to it before we join it. So I can use a set position, and before we turn it into a curve, actually, we can add a set position, a set. And just use the normal of the curve to scale the curve, and we can use a vector math just to scale this by a noise texture. We might want to subtract 1.5 and also multiply, and this will be the strength of our noise. And we can also expose the strength of our normal. So let's try this again and see. Add rebar. Yeah, you can see what we are getting. But if you scale this enough, you can see that the rebar starts floating because the noise is also being applied to the roots of the rebar, which is not what we want. So we can come here at the scale and just scale it by the length of the curve. So I can get a spline parameter like this, and I just use that as a factor there. That way we can be guaranteed that no matter the scale, the roots are not going to change. But our rebar is too sharp in corners. So what we can do is, after we did subdivide the curve, we can convert this into, actually I think after the set position, we can change the handle type or the spline type from poly to Bezier, and also change the handle type to auto. Should be good. We can try this again, rebar, and add our noise. Yeah, it seems also to just be going in one direction. So what we can do is just multiply this multiply the factor. Let me use a combine XY. Randomize the position of the rebar to also fall down or go up. So the reason why it's not working is because I've changed this to 0, 0. So this should be 1. So let's try again. Yeah, you can see how that is working. Yeah, so there are quite a lot you can do here. Add rebar, and you get the idea. Yeah, look at that. You can add more rebar. Yeah, you can set a material for the rebar as well. So let's do that. So before we do the join, you can go to my asset library and look for concrete, and let's look for metal for the rebar. Let's use something simple like this. Can use a set material. Just use the metal plate. Let me come back here, remove the rebar, and select the different faces, and yeah, you can see it has a different material. All the modifiers we did are still working, so I can add damage here. UV, add damage at cursor, scale this up, subdivide this, reduce the noise strength. Look at that. And I can select any of these vertices and just add rebar to them, randomize them, change the radius, the resolution. That we can see these don't have end caps, but You first remove them. You can go back to the modifier and just make sure that this has fill caps, and now they should have fill caps, as you can see there. So you can add more detail to this if you want. So you can see how, let's see, what other modifier? Nearest to cursor, rebar curve. And then maybe our final touch, we can add another tool that lets us convert any edge loop we want, any edge loop we have, into a curve as the final tool we have. So to do that, we can again just create a new modifier, a new tool, call this selection to curve to wires. Let's call this wires. Let's select a line like that. Again, we can bring in the selection like this, and just use the mesh to curve, and this comes with a selection. We can plug that in, and all we need now is to convert this back to a mesh, and we can give this a profile that should be a curve circle. You can fill curve, you can expose the resolution, you can expose the radius like that, and I think that's it. So if we try this, yeah, you get the curve, you get the resolution. Now all that is left is just joining back the original geometry using the join geometry node, just like that, and I should be good to go. Selection to wire, and reduce the radius. You can again use the other tricks of setting the materials and everything, but yeah, I think that's good enough. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can talk to me in the comments, or get the project files for all the modifiers we have created on my Patreon page, or Gumroad, or on my YouTube membership page. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.